Howdy, co-creators. I just want to read and remember with Magenta Pixie. Can we see this? Magenta Pixie, no. No good. Well, Magenta Pixie's latest book. Very awesome. A lot of uploads, downloads, whatever you call it. I want to read and remember maybe a way of looking at our original source as self. I remember that once I was alone, I existed within a dark void. I knew no one, and I did not know myself. After a while, what seemed like an eternity, I realized I was thinking. I realized I therefore must be existing if I was thinking. Another came upon me, a being just as great as I. I realized this being was me, a reflection of all that I was. I was no longer alone. I was now male and female, love and light. The statement and the question, the other being my equal, my reflection, said to me, how do you know you exist? Just because you think. Why does this mean you exist? What indeed is thought? I thought about this for a while and I realized the being that mirrored me, that was my equal, had a point. Yet I knew that I existed. However, I could not prove that to be the equal. I could not prove that to the equal aspect of me. Yet I agreed that together we would do all we could do to discover the answer to this question. Am I conscious? I send out a plea into all areas of myself, which is all areas, all particles, all realities, all thoughts, all expressions, through time and space. My plea was, I want to experience all and everything. This play was a frequency, and the frequency was called creation. Woo! I decided to stay where I was, within the void, for I am the only being, the only one, and I would stay within the void to experience all and everything. I remember this, so I split myself into more parts of myself, which each in turn created equal and opposite reactions and distortions, and these parts of myself went forth into all areas, all corners of reality, expressing themselves over and over and over again. And I learned from each aspect of myself, for I could communicate with these aspects of myself, and they sent back to me the sum of my experience. Okay. There was the moment Oh, cheers. Happy Christmas. Actually, it is solstice time. Yeah. Okay. There was the moment before the first thought where I was a perpetual beating heart of so much flowing love and ecstasy, and there was the moment after the first thought where I became confused and self-righteous, wanting to prove that I existed. Yet when I felt that way, I realized I had lost myself. I had fallen far away from the moment before the first thought, and I desperately wanted to get back to before the first thought, and before the first thought smiled at me with so much love for me, but I was angry, for I knew that I was the original source before the first thought. Wow. I used to be full of love, but I forgot how to hold that frequency, and I forgot who I was, and I fell further and further, and more I felt, I the more I forgot. Whew. I knew that I had to get back to before the first thought. I knew I had to prove to the other aspect of self, the first distortion, the equal and opposite reaction, that I was conscious. Then I became confused and did not know if I was original source before the first thought or the first distortion. Was I the statement of the question? So I split myself further and further into all and everything, and I knew if I could know all and everything, then I would find the answer to the question. Was I conscious? Further and further, I fell into until I could not remember the question. Whew. And I forgot why I was splitting myself into all these parts of myself. I thought I was only one part surrounded by many other parts, and I forgot that they were all me. Sorry, they are all me. Oh my. I started to feel jealous of the other parts of me. I could still feel the infinite, infinite love from the original source before the first thought, and I thought that the original source loved all the other parts of me more than me, and I began to get jealous of them, and I tried to destroy them. So it would only be me left, and I would be the only one that original source loved. I moved into every area, experiencing every vibration. Yet I could not remember why I was doing this, and I could not remember what I was supposed to do. I fell further and further until I finally forgot who original source was. I forgot the statement and I forgot the question. All I did was exist in a place of ignorance. not knowing, No. I eventually remembered the love I had once experienced, and I was desperate for that love again. The more desperate I became for that love, the more it eluded me. Eluded. Oh, you see me? No, you don't. My existence was miserable. I suffered again and again and again. And then, after a long time, I cannot say how long, for it felt like eternity. After doing many bad things, I began to learn. Ooh. I began to learn how things worked. I realized that if I had a particular thought or followed a certain deed, then things would happen. I began to learn and I began to love. Love found me and I began to experience love. At first, this love would be snatched from me, leaving me to suffer alone again. But eventually, after a long time, I found true love and lasting, sustainable love. With this love, I began to do good things. I began to care and I began to be compassionate toward others. I started to remember that the others were really me, that they were all aspects of me. And as I did this, I began to climb back up further and further and further into the light and the love of Source. Finally, I reached the pinnacle of my existence as an individualized aspect that was the absolute equal and opposite reaction of original thought, and I could stand before original thought and respond to the original primordial sound of the I am presence with the I am response. I remembered that original source was me. I am the original source. I am the original source. I stood at the side of myself, at the right hand of the Father as the Divine Mother. I realized then, with the grace and the pure acceptance of the exact replica of original source, that my job was never ending. I realized that experience was infinite and that I would go on and dividing myself for all eternity throughout infinities in a never-ending search for the answer to the question, am I conscious? I had to lose my memories over and over again in order to believe I was separate from original source, and time and time again, I remembered that I was original source. When I stood as the equal and opposite reaction to source, and simultaneously stood as original source, I remembered that I was both things. beings. I could then embrace the omnipotent, omnipresent of all that I was, and simultaneously experience all and everything in one moment. I knew as the equal and opposite reaction to original source that my job was never ending. My expression outward, yeah, was infinite, yet also I remembered that I was the equal and opposite reaction to original source. And if I was that, then my job was complete. For all possibility exists. Therefore, I was a never ending entity caught in a constant cycle of division and expression. Loss of memory and returning of memory, omnipotent, omnipresent, and unified, yet also separate and alone. I was an equal and opposite reaction to the very first action. I was also the action and the infinite response, responsive expressions that followed in the never-ending search for the answer to the original question, am I conscious? Oh my, I am conscious. Or am I? Have fun, co-creators. I hope you enjoy this. See you in another chapter.